In March of 2000, pro wrestling was everywhere. Sports entertainment was at its absolute peak. ECW had landed a TV deal with TNN, WCW was giving the world title to a new guy every few days, and the WWF was pushing the boundaries every night with more blood and boobs than any preteen knew what to do with. It was a great time to be a fan, and it was a great time to be a kid. When I wasn't stuck at school, my days consisted of goofing off outside with my friends. We'd play kickball, run around with toy guns, play with our action figures, or guys as we'd call them, and play video games. Video games were becoming more mature as the years went on. Mario and Crash Bandicoot weren't going anywhere, but they were being joined by the likes of Resident Evil, Silent Hill, and Metal Gear Solid.
Payday, Mitch. I'm proud of you. With this, you joined the American workforce. A rare breed of determined and dedicated...
Quit. Now $129.95 gets you an N64 and a second Atomic Purple Color controller free.
If you were a wrestling fan with a Nintendo 64, you had it made. WCW was absolutely killing it in the 90s with WCW NWO World Tour, and then WCW vs. NWO Revenge. The WWF followed suit, releasing WrestleMania 2000 just 2 years later. But if you had a PlayStation, you weren't so lucky. I was a PlayStation kid growing up, which means I basically got the shit end of the stick. While the other kids played their 4-player copies of Revenge and WrestleMania 2000, I was trying my best to pretend that WWF Warzone wasn't a complete pile of shit. Warzone was developed by Iguana, who had been making WWF games for years, and none of them were particularly amazing. I remember telling my friends, "No, dude, Warzone is awesome. If you do a weapons match, sometimes there's a table." That was my argument, that every once in a while there'd be a table you could break. Yeah, what a great game.
1, 2, 3.
But back to March of 2000. March 2nd, 2000 to be exact. WWF SmackDown was released for the PlayStation. It was the first WWF game to be developed by Ukes, and with the new team behind the wheel, PlayStation fans hoped it would be the first great pro wrestling game on their home console. Oh my goodness gracious, do I love that sound. That's one of the definitive sounds of my childhood. Now look, if you're watching this, it's probably because you're a fan of the SmackDown games or at the very least familiar with them, so don't worry, I'm not going to give you a full tutorial on the inner workings of the game mechanics and how it works. We're just going to jump right into the action. SmackDown is fucking awesome. Gone are the days of Warzone's Mortal Kombat-esque button combinations in order to hit a finisher. All you have to do is get your opponent groggy and tap L1. SmackDown offers you 12 different match types right off the bat, including cage matches, hardcore, I Quit, special referee, Royal Rumble, King of the Ring, and more. The number is actually higher than 12 when you break it down, as Survival has subcategories of Fatal 4-Way and Triple Threat. PlayStation gamers had never had this much variety at their fingertips. This is all before you factor in create a pay-per-view mode, where you can book your own entire card and play it out one by one. It even archives your best shows with an audience rating. Again, as a stats junkie, I love this. The ability to customize the arena might be a throwaway feature to some, but it was actually one of my favorite parts. You had the option to choose between Raw, SmackDown, and pay-per-view arenas, and then you could customize the ring. Sometimes I'd put the SmackDown ring in the Raw arena just because I could. By the way, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the WWF ever used those graphics on the ring mat. I didn't miss an episode of Raw or SmackDown for years, and I don't ever recall seeing one. Either way, they're cool, so I use them every once in a while. The character select screen seems to be in no order whatsoever. We go from Triple H to Big Show to Mankind to X-Pac to Mr. Ass, which wasn't even his name, to Road Dogg to Kane. What the hell is this? Would have been so hard to put it in alphabetical order? The animation quality on the finishing moves varies from top-notch to terrible. For example, Undertaker's tombstone looks great, as is the People's Elbow. Others look completely weightless and silly, like Austin's Stunner and Chris Jericho's double powerbomb. I feel conflicted on SmackDown's championship belt situation. I was a belt mark growing up. I was obsessed with belts, so who I put them on and why meant a lot to me. Unfortunately, the belts themselves are nowhere to be found outside of the belt record screen. In-game characters don't wear them to the ring, they don't celebrate with them when they win, nothing. On the plus side, we have every WWF championship at our disposal. You've got your WWF title, Intercontinental title, Hardcore, European, Tag Team, Women's, it's all here. You can do whatever you want. As long as it coincides with the ranking system. What? Yeah, there's an in-depth ranking system. It keeps track of wins, losses, which as a stats junkie, I love, but you have to be a top 5 contender to challenge for the WWF Championship, so there's no room for spontaneity, which means you can't just have Undertaker defend the WWF title against D'Lo Brown as a goof. You'd have to have D'Lo go on an insane winning streak and work his way up the rankings to get an opportunity. This sucks. The WWF did goofy shit like this all the time, and it led to some of those memorable moments we've ever seen. Jericho versus Triple H for the title on Raw, anybody? I see what they were trying to do with the ranking system, and I actually don't hate it, I just wish it were optional. Strict rankings make this feel more like a UFC game than a WWF game. And speaking of the UFC, what the fuck is with the match rules in this game? Obviously you can win by scoring a pinfall, but why are submission and knockout a package deal? Why is there even an option for a knockout in a wrestling game? Do you have any idea how rare that is? It totally ruins the fun if you forget to turn this option off, and in the middle of a back and forth match where you and your opponent are trading 2 counts, they hit their finisher and all of a sudden it's over. You don't even get the chance to kick out or pray for a rope break, it just ends. One of the main pieces of the SmackDown puzzle is the season mode. You choose a character and play through a stripped-down version of the WWF calendar starting in April of 2000. I'll give you a quick rundown of what my season mode experience was like. I chose to start with The Undertaker because he was the WWF champion and I wanted to defend the title. My first match was a fatal 4-way against Austin, Big Show, and Triple H. My title was not on the line, which sucked, but I thought, okay, it's just an episode of Raw, that makes sense that they wouldn't want to give away a huge match like that for free. It did not take long for me to realize I was giving them way more credit than they deserved. Season mode makes no fucking sense whatsoever. I won the 4-way and moved on to the next show. Title defense now, right? Nah. How about a triple threat against Big Show and China?
What?
Oh, and that's nothing. I won the triple threat match and moved ahead, only to find out that I was now the special referee for the women's title match between Tori and Deborah. Can you imagine the fucking Undertaker being the referee for the women's title match? Undertaker was running the ministry at this point. He crucified Stephanie McMahon and hung her from the ceiling, and now he's decided to take up refereeing in women's matches? Whatever, there's a skip button, so I took advantage of that. The next week I faced X-Pac in a cage. Still a little odd as far as the rankings go, but it was a step in the right direction. Another week rolls on, and here we go, SummerSlam. Now's the time. Now is finally the time for me to defend my WWF Championship in the main event of one of the Big Four. I eagerly tap the X button, and I'm not even on the fucking show. The main event was Paul Bearer versus Big Boss Man in an I Quit match. No titles on the line. Nothing. No reason for it happening at all. Speaking of no reason, there are cutscenes in season mode, and they serve no purpose whatsoever. Like I said, I was playing as The Undertaker, and in the middle of the show, the game starts loading. I see Hardcore Holly in the ring and the text window pops up saying, Hardcore Holly and Matt Hardy have a long-standing feud. First of all, no they don't. I've been looking at every match card all year. Second of all, I don't give a shit, I'm The Undertaker. At one point the game cut to Bradshaw and Farouk in the boiler room in full gear. The text said, I wonder what they're talking about. Who gives a fuck what they're talking about? I played season mode for 8 months before they let me defend my WWF title on a random episode of SmackDown. It wasn't even a pay-per-view. Inside of that 8 months, I saw Ken Shamrock go 16-0 before losing to Vince McMahon of all people, who I guess was jealous of his success. And the screen said, Anywhere match, which I guess meant Anywhere Falls, which is probably the terrible translation of Falls Count Anywhere. That's weird. Anyway, I finally defended my title and I lost when Mankind rolled me up in the middle of the ring. Didn't even hit a finisher, nothing. Oh, what a joke. After a full year of season mode, I go to a screen that pops up with text that says, "Congratulations, you can create Ivory." Yeah, you don't unlock wrestlers in this game. You unlock pieces of them, and you have to build them yourself. And not only that, to make them worth a damn, you have to take them through 10 years of preseason mode. 10 years! The fuck out of here. Outside of season mode, I made a few other weird observations. When I was a kid, I thought this casket was a table. How? I don't know. I think I knew it was a casket, I just wanted it to be a table because I was so desperate to put someone through a table in this game. And holy shit, how strong you have to be to swing a casket like that. Caskets are heavy as hell. There's a reason it takes 6 pallbearers to carry one at a funeral. And no, not that pallbearer. I mean the coffin boy. And one more thing. Did anyone else notice that Bubba Ray Dudley is wearing the Confederate flag on his head? Ay, ay, ay. So that's WWF SmackDown on the PlayStation. It was super fun 17 years ago, and it's super fun now. I was a little hard on it for the sake of this review, but that's just to make it entertaining. If I talk about how good it is the whole time, that's not very fun to watch. You can get that sort of video anywhere. This was just part 1 in a 5-part series. I'm going to cover the entire classic SmackDown game collection, so I hope you join us next time, where we're going to cover WWF SmackDown 2 Know Your Role, the only numbered sequel in the entire run for some reason. I'll see you next time, Dan Haynes.
Ready, camera 5, camera 7, tilt up. Ready, roll green, stand by lights, camera 6, pan right. And action. Welcome to SmackDown! Oh my god, this is great!
If you smile,
We could have a new champion! No!
you will step into the ring.
WWF SmackDown released in March of 2000 and it was an enormous success, trouncing WCW Mayhem in sales, tallying 3.58 million units sold globally. I called it PlayStation's first WWF champion in part 1, because that's what it was to fans on the PlayStation side. We finally had a game worthy of a championship. Things stayed red hot on the Nintendo side, as WWF No Mercy was released on November 17th of 2000. It would go down in history as one of the best wrestling games ever made. Could the PlayStation keep up? 4 days after the release of No Mercy, it was time to find out.
Your Olympic hero has arrived. It's true. Hey, think die, kid. You people have to be honored to have a man of intensity, integrity, and intelligence among you. Yes, I'd like a room, please.
Sorry, no vacancy!
Oh, that's okay. I'll take theirs. Here come my fans.
Prepare to lay the SmackDown in the all-new Hell in a Cell or in a high-flying ladder match. WWF SmackDown 2 Know Your Role for the PlayStation game console. You think you got what it takes, jabroni?
I love this place.
Rated T for teen.
WWF SmackDown 2 is the only numbered sequel in the entire series, which I find kind of weird, but it definitely adds enough to feel like a sequel. These days, games like Madden often get trashed by gamers because they feel like they're paying $60 a year for a roster update. SmackDown 2 fortunately did not get the memo on that one, as not only does it improve on several of the features present in the last game, but it has expanded the roster and added 6 new match types. I so desperately wanted to put someone through a table in the first game that I tried to convince myself that an enormous casket might possibly be a table. Well, my wishes were granted, as SmackDown 2 was, to my knowledge, the first game to ever feature a table match. And guess what? They're super fun. If you're unfamiliar, a table match ends when one wrestler slams the other through a table. Here, we've got 2 ways to get that done. First, you can lay your opponent on the table and dive off the top rope to smash them through. If that doesn't sound like fun, you can Irish whip your opponent onto the table and perform a grapple. This gets you on top of the table, where you can deliver either a pile driver, power bomb, or, if you're The Rock, a rock bottom through the table. I always wondered why more characters didn't have special table finishers. Why just The Rock? Would the pedigree not have looked awesome going through a table? Ladder matches make their first PlayStation appearances here as well. It was a feature sorely missing from the first game, and while it's nice to have it as an option, it doesn't seem totally fleshed out. Ladder matches in pro wrestling take time. You've really got to put a beating on your opponent before you can climb up and retrieve the title. And by the time they're hurt enough for you to make the climb, you're hurt too. It's a whole process. In SmackDown 2, that's not what ladder matches feel like. You climb faster than shit, and you can literally jump and reach for the title within seconds of the match starting. I finished a ladder match in 55 seconds, and I wasn't even trying to go fast. It was literally my first attempt at the title, and I snatched it out of the sky. And what the hell is going on with the title hanging above the ring anyway? Why is it flying all over the place? Why is there no cable hanging from the ceiling? Why is it always the European title, no matter what championship is on the line? Like I said, it doesn't feel totally fleshed out and finished, but it's fun nonetheless. TLC matches are here too, after you unlock them in season mode. It's a ladder match that also provides tables and chairs, so we don't have to spend too much time on that. Slobber Knocker mode is endless fun. If you're a fan of Mortal Kombat, you love the arcade ladder where the game stacks the deck and puts a whole army of opponents in front of you. In Slobber Knocker mode, you've got 10 minutes to murder as many other wrestlers as possible. Your finisher bar charges much faster and your opponents are much weaker than usual, making one finisher enough to knock out most opponents. I love this mode. Whoever thought a high score is something players would strive for in a wrestling game? Casket matches are new, but they're kinda weird. In actual wrestling, you win a casket match by throwing your opponent into the ringside casket and closing the lid. In SmackDown 2, the casket is simply in the ring with you and you can do whatever you want with it. Casket matches have never been fought like this in any wrestling company to my knowledge. Like I said in part 1, caskets are too fucking heavy to swing around like this. It looks silly. And speaking of looking silly, guess how you win? Do you do your finishing move and the game animates you slamming your opponent into the casket? Nope. Do you toss them into the casket and trigger a minigame where you button mash trying to fill a meter until the casket lid slams shut? Nope. You whip your opponent into the casket, kick them, and a door appears out of nowhere leading to a knockout. What the fuck? Last but definitely not least, Hell in a Cell makes its video game debut here. And while it's fun, I have a few questions. Did the game designers not know what the cell looked like? Never once did WWF have a cage match with a roof on it. The cell expands to the outside of the ring in real life, it always has. So how they wound up with this design is beyond me. But on to the positives. Yeah, I know I complain a lot in these, but that's the point. I want to talk about these games the way I remember them, and not all of my memories are A+ level. But anyway, every feature you want out of a cell match is here. You can break out, climb on top, smash your opponent through the roof. It's a hell of a lot of fun. There's even a punch counter you can use to throw your opponent off the top of the cell, but it's really rare and hard to pull off. In 17 years, I can count how many times I've done it on one hand. And wouldn't you know it, while I was trying to pull it off for the sake of this video, it happened to me. That's fucking awesome. The first thing we hear when turning on the game is JR talking to us.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is proof anything can happen in the World Wrestling Federation.
So there's got to be commentary here, right? No, not at all. Why tease us with commentary if there's not going to be any in the game? Not an ounce of it. I mean, even bad commentary would have been better, right? It would have been better than nothing.
People's champ is different from other superstars.
What the fuck was that? Season mode has gotten a bit of an overhaul. There are more cutscenes to keep stories alive, and when you skip a match, it cuts to a versus screen where the wrestler's health bar shrinks until somebody loses. Everything is generally more connected, which is fun, but oh my god with the fucking loading screens. You start at the main menu for season mode, and you can either proceed to the card, check the status of any wrestler, look at the belt records, rankings, so on and so forth. Every single thing you click on needs a loading screen. Interested in belt records? You get a loading screen to open the menu, and a loading screen when you want to leave. Want to see where you are in the rankings? There's a loading screen on both sides of that, too. There are an average of 4 cutscenes per event, which leads to 8 fucking loading screens. There are a million different graphics, but Jesus Christ, I hope you enjoy them, because you're going to see them a lot. They're everywhere. The last game didn't have this, so what's going on here? Why is this necessary? It makes this mode nearly unplayable. Also, I started Season Mode as Chris Benoit because this game came out in 2000 and he was still a role model. And in the first game Season Mode, I was constantly put in matches that made no sense. In this game, I'm not being used at all. Seriously, 2 weeks in and I haven't even been on the card. Now I know how Emma feels. Something about the main menu music always made me uneasy. It bothers me to this day. What the fuck are they even saying? It sounds like slaves, slaves. Mark Madden, Mark Madden. Where, Bob? I feel like ghosts and other weird spirits are trying to communicate with me through the game, and I don't like it. I really can't explain it. I'm not even trying to be funny. When I was a kid, I would honestly mute the TV at the main menu. I don't like it. I still don't like it. Recording this has bothered me. There's a cool Easter egg that only happens sometimes when you play a Royal Rumble match. For some reason, the Big Show will sporadically appear toward the end of the match. He has no entrance music, and his name bar is unlabeled. I always got excited when this happened because it's one of those things you could tell your friends at school. It was weird because Big Show isn't in this game. It was like they meant to include him but never finished him, or they left him out for some reason, and this is the only time you get to see him? I don't know. I still don't know the meaning behind this, but I remember it happening a lot as a kid. Another super cool thing is the inclusion of announce tables. These were almost sure to be destroyed in every big match I ever had. What's not to like about smashing someone through the broadcast table? And I'm no racist. I'll smash the Spanish and US announce tables. I don't give a fuck. If you look off in the distance, you can see the 2D versions of Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross doing commentary, which is strange that they're there since there's no commentary in the game, but it's cool to see them either way. Oh, and championship belts are finally here. Champions wear their title to the ring as long as the title's being defended. While I was overjoyed to see the belts, the nitpicker in me was always annoyed with how the wrestlers carried them. Have you ever seen a wrestler flip the belt over his shoulder? They hang onto the strap to keep it in place. So why the fuck do they place their palm over the whole center plate in the game? What the hell is that? Move your hand, I want to see the belt! The ranking system was something I commented on in the first game, and I actually think it's gotten worse in SmackDown 2. Now, each belt has its own division, almost like the weight classes in the UFC. If you want to challenge for the Intercontinental title, you have to be in the Intercontinental title rankings. And once you enter the Intercontinental title rankings, you can't challenge for the WWF Championship, because you're not in the WWF Championship rankings. What the hell is that about? Let me make spontaneous and poor decisions! Tag team matches are definitely more interesting and fun in SmackDown 2. The introduction of double team moves went a long way. You want to hit the 3D? Go for it. Oh yeah. Also, I figured this out on accident one time. There's a glitch on the stage that allows you to float in the air and climb onto a plane that doesn't exist. You can repeat this over and over again until you meet your heart's desire. I don't know why I thought this was so entertaining as a kid, but it's one of those things I just wanted to point out. Hardcore matches were all the rage at this time in the WWF, and it would not be fair to not put over how many different areas you can fight in this game. There's parking lots, locker rooms, offices. Each location has new weapons you can hit your opponent with. There's different kinds of tables you can slam each other through backstage. This was really a hardcore match lover's dream. To go from area to area, you just have to stand next to the red arrow until it turns blue, then just run into it. You don't have to Irish whip your opponent anymore, you can dictate the pace. But you have to be careful, or else you might get hit by a car. Hi, I'm Steve Blackman. Welcome to Jackass. All in all, SmackDown 2 definitely scratched the itch that PlayStation fans were feeling after the release of the first game. Table matches, ladder matches, Hell in a Cell, these were features that we were dying for, and we got what we wanted. The main takeaway from SmackDown 2 is that it came out less than a year after the original. Seriously, there was barely 8 months between the two releases. As a kid, I didn't get my copy on day one. I had to wait until Christmas. And I feel like that was the case for most kids. Good luck trying to get your parents to buy you another SmackDown game in November when they just spent $50 on one in March. That's insane. That wraps up my review of WWF SmackDown 2 on the PlayStation. It was the last game WWF would release on the PlayStation, and I look back on it very fondly, even if I'm still pointing out some of the weird things that I notice about it. Because these games are not perfect, and I want these videos to feel personal. I don't want you to be able to find this video anywhere else. This is how I remember SmackDown. This was just part 2 in a 5-part series where I'm going to cover the entire SmackDown games collection, at least the classic ones. So I hope to see you next time when we cover
WWF SmackDown! Just bring it!
What the fuck was that? WWF SmackDown showed us how good wrestling games can be on the PlayStation, and a short while later, SmackDown 2 built on that foundation, pushing the boundaries in every way imaginable. The WWF's flagship game franchise would say goodbye to the original PlayStation with its next entry in favor of moving on to the next generation. The PlayStation 2 was released on October 26th of 2000 in North America, and, as expected, it was an enormous success. Sales of the console and games and accessories totaled $250 million in its first day on the market, absolutely obliterating the $97 million drawn by the Dreamcast the year before. The PlayStation 2 boasted better graphics, better loading times, better everything. Look, you guys know what the PS2 is. I'm not going to talk your ear off forever about stuff you already know. It had great exclusives like Final Fantasy X, God of War, Shadow of the Colossus, Kingdom Hearts. There were so many of them. You love it. You know what it is. Let's talk about WWF SmackDown, just bring it. Here it is, Dan Dans, the WWF's first foray into the next generation, and it looks alright? Yeah, it looks okay. I might be crazy. I might be the only person in the world who thinks this way. You can let me know in the comments. But I honestly prefer the graphics from SmackDown 2. Sure, the characters and objects were more jagged and sharp compared to their Just Bring It counterparts, but the colors were so much deeper and more pleasing to the eye. Look at the ring mat and apron in SmackDown 2, and now compare it to Just Bring It. Why are the colors on Just Bring It so washed out? Why is everything so blurry? This is the first WWF game on the PlayStation 2, but this wasn't a launch title. Just Bring It came out more than a year after the release of the console, so why does it look like it was rushed onto the platform?
Weighing 235 pounds, from the Bowery, New Jersey, Raven.
On the positive side when it comes to graphics, every superstar now has a full-length entrance. No more walking in front of a video wall like SmackDown 1 and 2. Now we've got Stone Cold Steve Austin hitting each and every corner of the ring, the Dudley Boys Pyro, which looks awesome,
Weighing 245 pounds, from Dudleyville, Steve Dudley.
and Dean Malenko staring off into nothing for a really long time. I remember thinking these entrances were so cool when I was a kid, and hell, they're still cool. Howard Finkel sounds a little weird, but hey, that's not so bad. Consider the weird audio on him an early PS2 charm.
Weighing 248 pounds, from the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York, Taz!
This was the first SmackDown game that let you fight in the crowd, and check it out. It looks fucking terrible. This isn't me being old and cynical. When my friends and I used to fight in the crowd back in the day, we'd jump in there and watch all the 2D paper people run around and go, "What the hell is this? This looks so stupid." If this is what it looked like on the development floor, I don't think I would have put this out. Again, this is another place where this game, they just made some weird decisions. To this very day, Just Bring It is the only game that has allowed up to 8 wrestlers in the ring at the same time. My friend and I used to play 8-man battle royals over and over again. It was our favorite match type. They're a complete mess, the targeting system is a nightmare to deal with, but who cares? It's fun just to experience, and I definitely recommend it. Before we go any further, we need to talk about the commentary in this game. Yes, this was the first SmackDown game to feature full play-by-play by Michael Cole and Taz. A factoid they were so proud of, they listed it as a main feature on the box art, which is kind of bullshit, because the Cole and Taz they have on the box art are in full 3D, and in the game, they're not. The commentary in this game is so bad, it has become a thing of legend over the years.
This table match is great. I don't like him. That's dumb.
Kurt Angle executes a perfect ankle lock.
I'll be announcing tonight's event.
They're colliding in the ring. Just look. The Undertaker. And we'll be having a match. It's all over. Edge was not. What will the outcome of this match be?
Just stop it. The Undertaker was great the other day. Whoa!
Edge looks furious tonight.
What? That's not good?
That can't be! Reverse the pin!
Oh.
Be quiet.
Took the back.
He really is a nice person.
My buddy Tim Ewers and I, aka Bathroom Money, make fun of this commentary to this day. Out of the blue, one of us might say, you know, Tim, I would love a pizza from Giordano's! Giordano's! I don't know how they shipped this game with this commentary. It blows me away that anyone thought it sounded good.
This Hell in a Cell is great.
Kurt Angle and Edge are showing some serious competition. Angle slam! Angle slam!
I can't believe it.
I've never seen a fight like this before. I can't believe it.
What were they thinking? Taz sounds like a complete moron. I think this is good. Why put that comment in the game? Why? Did anyone tell Taz that he was supposed to sound excited? It sounds like he's looking at the script for the first time and just running through it out loud. WWF SmackDown showed us how good games can be on the PlayStation before SmackDown 2. I could talk about just this game's commentary for a full hour, but that would not be very appealing. We've got a whole game to talk about here. Each wrestler now has 2 finishing moves, which is really cool. It allows wrestlers like The Rock to have the Rock Bottom and the People's Elbow at their finisher disposal, rather than including the Rock Bottom as a low-impact groggy grapple move. Having to choose between the Rock Bottom and the People's Elbow adds to the variety of ways a match can end.
The People's Elbow! The People's Elbow!
Fans are enjoying this.
We see the same dynamic with wrestlers like Jeff Hardy. If you're in danger of getting beaten, you want to use that twist of fate out of nowhere. But if you're in control, do it up, nail the swanton.
Hurry, hurry!
On the opposite side, some wrestlers have 2 versions of the same move in their finisher slots, which also adds to the variety. Stone Cold is the best example here. I liked choosing between which version of the stunner I would use on certain opponents. Yes, they added a new stunner animation, and yes, this one looks like shit too. I always hated these animations because they're based off of The Rock's overselling of the move. Sure, we all love when The Rock would oversell the stunner, but using that animation across the whole game makes it look really dumb when Austin hits the stunner on Big Show or Undertaker and they're flying around the ring like a lunatic. Did this bother anyone else? Let me know. One of the coolest little additions to the series that Just Bring It debuted was having a referee in the ring with you. This might seem unimportant to some, but I always enjoyed it. There's something extremely satisfying about watching the ref count to 3 while you're pinning your opponent.
The Rock and Kane are competing continually. The pinfall end of the match.
Load times are way better in Just Bring It. SmackDown 2 had awful load times. You spent the majority of the game just waiting to play it. Here, it's almost instantaneous. There basically are no load times. It's a major plus.
It is electric in this arena tonight.
There are a number of unlockable characters in the game, including Jerry Lynn, Tajiri, Spike Dudley, Fred Durst.
What?
Yes, you heard me correctly. Scoring at least 17 victories in Slobberknocker mode with The Undertaker will unlock Limp Bizkit's frontman, Fred Durst. His finishers are a weird spinning neckbreaker and the Swanton Bomb. I imagine this was to sweeten the deal of Limp Bizkit allowing The Undertaker to enter to Rollin in the game, but it's still weird to see. And for some reason, I love it. It's goofy as hell, and hey, if you're not a Limp Bizkit fan, you can beat the shit out of Fred Durst with the 2001 WWF roster, and what's wrong with that? I can see some fans having been angry that Fred Durst of all people is in the game, but we don't have WCW and ECW staples like Booker T, Diamond Dallas Page, Rob Van Dam, and others. This game took place during the invasion, and the big names are missing. It does suck, but there's a cutoff point that these games work under when it comes to the roster, so there's only so much time the team has. It takes a hell of a lot of work to create a high-quality character model. Not including some of these characters didn't come down to choosing more important superstars, it came down to time constraints and when their contracts in real life were actually worked out, and that sucks. Another thing that sucks is the size of the roster overall. In SmackDown 2 we had a roster of 60 wrestlers, and that was on the PS1. This is the next generation, we made the leap, and we've only got 44 wrestlers to work with. What the fuck is that about? This is another area that makes the game feel both rushed and late to the party at the same time. This game does not suck, don't get me wrong, but this was the big step onto the PlayStation 2, and it seems mostly fumbled. The graphics are blurry, the roster is disappointing with or without the WCW-ECW timing excuse, and more. We're going to do some rapid fire coverage of 7 more ways Just Bring It was a disappointment, so we're not dragging this out for longer than we have to. Number 1, the lack of new match types. Casket matches are completely missing for one. They were a little wonky in SmackDown 2, but rather than improving on the mode, they've taken it out completely. There are 3 new match types, including Ultimate Submission, which is basically just an Iron Man match with no pins, Last Man Standing, which is fun, and Street Fight, which sucks. A street fight is just a hardcore match where you can't go backstage. What the fuck is the point of that? On the positive side, they did add 3 stages of hell, but I'm not going to count that as a new match type, because it's basically just letting you choose 3 matches that already exist. Number 2, create a pay-per-view is gone as well. It was one of the most fun features of the series. It graded you based on how good your show was, and it's totally absent. Major bummer. Number 3, what the hell is with the narrator?
Caution. Caution.
Do we really need to hear that every time we select something from the menu? We can read, we don't need to be verbally confronted each individual time autosaving is an option. Number 4, saving takes so long. Look at this. That is ridiculous. You'll find yourself saying no to autosaving because it takes so long and you'd rather just do it once right before you turn the system off. But sometimes you forget to do that last second save and you lose all your progress. Why does it take so long? Number 5, table matches have been completely ruined. In SmackDown 2, you were able to climb on a table and you were glued in place until you jumped off of it. In Just Bring It, you've got more freedom. You can climb on a table and move around, which sounds great, as it should expand in the amount of moves at your disposal to slam your opponent through, but there's no invisible wall to hold you and your opponent in place. This means that every time you and your opponent are on the table, you'll fall off before you can slam them through. It happens almost every single time, and oh my goodness gracious, is it frustrating. And then, sometimes by some miracle, you'll stay on the table long enough to execute a move and the goddamn thing won't break. You've gotta be kidding me. Number 6, this game's save file takes up more than half a standard memory card's data. You better have an extra memory card on hand if you want to track your progress and just bring it, because you sure as hell aren't going to want to delete your old saves from your other games. I have no idea why this file had to be so big. Much bigger games take up much less space, so I have no answers here other than it's really annoying. And number 7, and this one really sucks. Title matches are completely gone. I covered the weird ranking system that loomed over exhibition title matches in SmackDown and SmackDown 2, and how they kinda hindered the experience of putting a title on the line while you play, but in Just Bring It, you're not even allowed to put titles on the line at all. Not in any way, shape, or form. You'd hope that by the 3rd game in the franchise, Ukes would have had some idea how much fans like to put world titles on their favorite wrestlers and streamline the experience of doing so, but nope. The only time you even get to see the championships is in story mode. And oh, holy shit, let's talk about story mode. The 2 previous games in this series had a season mode, where we would control one superstar and play through the show week by week for years at a time. Again, we would control one character, but we got to see what was happening across the whole show every time. This time it's not called season mode, it's called story mode, and it has undergone some major changes. The mode begins simply enough with the player choosing who they want to wrestle as. I chose Jeff Hardy as he's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and I never had the balls as a kid to put the WWF Championship on him. At the time, I felt it was unrealistic. I said at the time. How was I supposed to know? We get to see one of the new features of story mode right off the bat, as Vince McMahon offers me a shot at the tag team titles. And that's it. We get to make choices in the game. I declined the tag title shot as I want to win the world title. Vince lets me know that I might not get this opportunity again, which is fine. I didn't want it to begin with. I didn't even earn it. I just pressed X. They wonder why the tag division is so fucked up these days. It's because all you have to do is press a button to get a shot at the gold. There are some really cool cutscenes before a match that mimic an actual show's intro video. I always thought these were awesome, and this is where the power of the PS2 is showcased. Live action video was passable on the last generation, and it was even considered awesome on the last generation, and it was. But now we've got the power to do these videos inside the game itself, and I always thought this was way cooler. But back to the story progression. Dean Malenko makes his way to the ring and calls out Stone Cold Steve Austin, who we have to assume is the WWF champion. The game never tells us that he's the champion, but I think we get the point. Austin doesn't emerge, but guess who does? I do. We can't let this homie be stealing what we're after, right? I opt to attack instead of trash talking, which is another choice we get to make. So, I rush to the ring. This kicks off a match between Malenko and I, and there's no referee, so I'm not really sure what to do. I just fuck him up and hit a swanton, and then knockout flashes on the screen, so I guess I won. Vince McMahon hits the stage, and he's upset at me for some reason. He says he's got a match for me tonight that'll teach me some respect. What is it? Is it a cage match against The Undertaker? Hell in a Cell against another main event level superstar? It's gotta be something big if he's mad and wants to teach me some respect, right? Wrong. It's a regular old wrestling match against Dean Malenko, who I just beat up. I beat his ass again with a 450 splash. We talk shit. Story mode was on SmackDown. Crash Holly, of all people, makes his entrance and talks shit about me, saying that if I want to win the WWF Championship, I have to prove my worth against him. He even lets me choose the match type. The 3 stipulations to choose from are Street Fight, Last Man Standing, and Ultimate Submission, which, as I touched on earlier, are the only 3 new match types in the game. This is how you unlock them. I chose Last Man Standing as I thought that would be the most fun. And also, hold on, before the match, no disrespect to Crash Holly, but doesn't this seem a little off? Why am I wrestling Dean Malenko and Crash Holly on my road to the title, and not The Rock and Triple H? It sticks out like a sore thumb, and it takes me out of the experience. I appreciate the imagination here, as I'm trying to put the WWF title on Jeff Hardy in 2001, for fuck's sake, but I feel like I'm facing jobbers on my way to the top. I don't like it. The Last Man Standing match is fun. We fought on the stage. We fought in the crowd. And I finished it with a twist of fate through the announce table.
Twist of fate! Twist of... Knockdown!
The WWF champion himself, Stone Cold Steve Austin, shows up on the ramp saying it doesn't matter who comes for his belt because it's not going anywhere. Austin's wearing different gear here than he wrestles in, which is awesome. And the belt looks pretty cool too, even if Austin never ever wore it around his waist in his career. I beat Dean Malenko and Crash Holly, and all of a sudden I'm one of the most dominant forces in Federation history, main eventing WrestleMania 17 against Stone Cold for the WWF Championship? Does this seem off to anybody else? Austin is in the ring being a dick. McMahon interrupts him and apparently doesn't like him or trust him, so he puts a special stipulation on the match, in the interest of fairness. Take a wild fucking guess what stipulation he chooses. Last man fucking standing. This means that the entirety of my story mode playthrough so far consists of knocking out Dean Malenko, pinning Dean Malenko, beating Crash Holly in Last Man Standing, and now facing Stone Cold in Last Man Standing. Ugh. Austin makes his way to the ring with an entrance theme I don't ever recall hearing before, and can we talk for a second about how terrible this entrance motion capture is? Every other WWF game, Austin walks like Austin. It's the BMF walk, bad motherfucker. We all know what it is. We all love it. In this game, he just looks like some dude strolling on down to the ring. Ugh. Anyway, Jesus Christ, let's get to the match. We fight for just over 4 minutes, I hit one twist of fate, and that's it. Imagine that being the main event of WrestleMania. Whatever, I win. Jeff Hardy is the new WWF champion.
Here is your winner, the World Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Champion, Jeff Hardy.
What's next? What? What is this? You've got to be kidding. That's it, guys. That's the full story mode. It's 3 fucking matches long. You know, in SmackDown and SmackDown 2, we played for years and years at a time. And that was on the original PlayStation. This is the PS2. This is the new powerhouse. We should have enough content here to hold us over until the next game. But we don't. This is it. There are other branching paths where you can challenge for the other WWF titles, but they're all only 3 matches long, so I give this game no mercy here. Story mode is complete bullshit. I would definitely have traded it for the simple ability to defend titles in exhibition mode. That way, I could use my imagination and make up my own goddamn stories. Stories that would last longer than 3 matches without 2 of them being fucking last man standing! So that's it, Dan Ams. That's my review of WWF SmackDown on the PlayStation 2. It's the first game on the PlayStation 2, and it's the first game that I'm not over the moon in love with. This was the game that I had the least amount of experience with. Like I said in the Part 2 video, my brother and I didn't get brand new games the day they came out. Sometimes we would get them for Christmas, or sometimes even the Christmas after. I personally did not have a PlayStation 2 until the 4th SmackDown game came out. So all of my time playing Just Bring It took place at a friend's house. This was the most I've ever sat down to play Just Bring It. While I was taking my notes and doing my research, the problems stand out more now than they did as a kid. When you're a kid, you just sit down and you play and it's like, oh, that's cool. The problems weren't as noticeable, but man, oh man, did they become noticeable when the next SmackDown game came out. This was just part 3 in a 5-part series covering the entire classic SmackDown games. I hope you come back next month where we're going to cover WWE SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. Oh dude, I seriously cannot wait for that one.
No, I won't give in, I won't give in till I'm victorious.
Stannies, this is the History of SmackDown Part 4. Let's not mince words, let's get right into it. Here's what you need to know. SmackDown Just Bring It that we covered on Part 3 of the series was a disappointment. Shut Your Mouth is the best game in the series so far. We don't have time for a history lesson with sales figures and the time that it was. Let's get right into the gameplay. This is Part 4 in the series, we're past that stuff. Let's jump right in and talk about some of the insane shit you can do in this game. Several of the stages include interactive platforms that are perfect for some of the most insane high spots you will ever see. I think every single wrestling fan who ever laid eyes on the giant King of the Ring chair fantasized about all the possible high spots you could put together, but none of them were ever done in real life. Probably for safety reasons. Shut Your Mouth says fuck safety and lets you do whatever you want. In the parking lot area, if you bump into one of the vehicles 3 times, it will explode and send your opponent sky high, only to come crashing down, totaling another car with the broken bag of bones that was once their body. The boiler room has a balcony area that has dangerous written all over it, especially if you whip your opponent into the combustible tanks on the right side of the screen. How the fuck would anyone survive that? And the main event, oh my goodness, you can jump off the top of the SmackDown fist. This would no doubt lead to death in real life, which only makes it all the more fun.
Holy shit!
Finishing moves are the best part of a wrestling match. It's what you wait for the whole time. Who doesn't like a picture-perfect swanton, an excellently timed Stone Cold Stunner, a deadly-looking Tombstone Piledriver? A brand new feature to the series is the ability to get theatrical with your finishing move. By pressing L1 or L2 during the animation, you can pause the action and create your own 360 matrix effect. Or a quadruple replay. Pressing both buttons at the same time will give you both effects, which is really cool. I always loved using this feature when I was playing against my friends. It gave you the perfect amount of time to relish the moment and talk shit before going for the cover. Stealing finishers makes its debut in Shut Your Mouth as well, and it's an awesome way to add an extra fuck you to your opponent. The SmackDown logo flashes red, and it costs 2 finisher slots to pull off, so you better make it count. And by that I mean make sure they don't reverse your finisher. Yes, that's another new feature. Shut Your Mouth adds the ability for your opponent, if they time it perfectly, to block your attempt of a finishing move. This adds an extra layer of drama that none of the previous 3 games in the series had. Shut Your Mouth drips with effort and creativity, and giving something as simple as the finishing move mechanics such depth and variety drives this home. Let's talk about Season Mode. The story mode of the last game is gone, dead and buried, so I hope you said goodbye to it and its 3 matches of fun, not that you'll miss it. In Shut Your Mouth, we choose one superstar and take them across 2 full years of the WWE calendar, starting off with the draft, which is so much fun. You can skip the draft and have the computer pick for you, but who the hell would do that? It's way more fun to choose a brand and draft for that roster. This also allows us to draft our own player on the show of our choice. After you've chosen the lineup for your show, we get dropped right into the action. I picked Diamond Dallas Page, a guy I wish had gotten a better chance in WWE during his time. We're backstage and we've got the world at our fingertips as free roaming is in full effect here. You can wander around the lobby looking for WWE superstars to interact with, you can check the locker room, go outside, or head into your general manager's office and check your superstar points. You can ask for a title shot and more. Season mode is a very reward-driven experience and I find it to be highly addictive. The roster screen shows your current superstar points. Winning matches raises the amount of points you have. The amount of points you have dictates which titles you can challenge for and what storylines you'll be involved in. This keeps us always wanting to win to open up new opportunities. For instance, early on in Season Mode, I went 4-0 across my first 4 matches, all against mid-card wrestlers. The first pay-per-view rolled around and I wasn't on the card. I was disappointed, but I wasn't involved in any active story, so it made sense. I walked into Ric Flair's office and chose the I want a title shot option, and holy shit! He took a look at my superstar points and asked, which title do you want to challenge for? I had the option of the Hardcore, Tag Team, or European Championship. I chose European, as the Intercontinental title was on SmackDown, and I wanted to assert myself as the number 2 guy on Raw. The card changed, I was booked against William Regal, and I won the title that night, which then developed into a 2-month-long storyline pitting me against Regal. This is just one example of how malleable the season mode is. You can book title matches, start a fight, or ask Stacy Keibler on a date at the drop of a hat. Every 5th show is a pay-per-view event, which grants us a chance to pick something from the Unlockables menu. We've got new attires for our wrestlers, new arenas to wrestle in, new creator wrestler parts or movesets. We can choose one of any of these things to unlock. Only being able to choose one has the player wanting to keep working through season mode, so we can get that next sweet piece of unlockable content. Each pay-per-view has a different pool of unlockables to choose from, so if you want everything, expect to play season mode several times through, which this time is a great thing because season mode is awesome. Storylines cover the entire gambit, from chases of championship gold to defending your general manager and show's honor against the opposing brand's army. Season mode is constantly changing, and the storylines stay fun and fresh enough that you're never going to want to put it down. It's insane that coming back to this game 15 years after its release has me wishing the current 2K games could manage to put together something as fun as this. This is the first time in the series, at least in my opinion, that the roster has a totally new feel to it. We've had the mainstays like Undertaker, Austin, The Rock, and Triple H since the first game in the series, and the mid-tier guys like Billy Gunn, X-Pac, Chris Jericho, and Albert, they've all felt the same. Shut Your Mouth introduces brand new names to the series like Brock Lesnar, Rob Van Dam, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Kevin Nash, Randy Orton, Kidman, Booker T, and several others to the mix. This roster is 60 wrestlers deep, which gives us plenty to work with. One of my biggest complaints in the history of SmackDown Part 3, where we covered Just Bring It, was that the game felt rushed. It felt like the developers and the publishers weren't worried about making the best SmackDown game yet. It felt like they wanted to get onto the PS2 and who cares about the quality. SmackDown Shut Your Mouth picks up the pieces and improves in almost every way. For starters, ladder matches have finally gotten an overhaul. We can now interact with the ladder way more than ever before. We can set it in the corner and perform different grapple moves using the ladder as a weapon. We can throw our opponent onto the ladder and then slam them down with backbreaking force, which the selling animation for is awesome, by the way. And the winning mechanics are totally redone as well. In part 2 of this series, I touched on how real-life ladder matches are plotted, that you need to put a real beatdown on your opponent to buy yourself enough time to secure the title hanging high above the ring. Shut Your Mouth puts this into practice, as you don't just press circle to win anymore. You've got to make the climb, reach for the title, and hold on long enough to rip the title from the cable, all before your opponent wakes up and tears you out of the sky. For the first time in the series, ladder matches are suspenseful, especially if you've got more than 2 wrestlers in the match. Fatal 4-way ladder matches can get pretty insane. They're so much fun. And oh, how could I forget my favorite addition to ladder matches? I'm a mark for high spots, and these animations are so fucking cool. I'll never get tired of these. While we're on the topic of matches getting overhauled, wouldn't you know it, they finally figured out what Hell in a Cell is supposed to look like. The cell now expands to the outside of the ring, and we've got new grapple moves in between the ring and the cage. We can smash our opponent's face into the steel, do the old cheese grater gimmick, the old javelin into the wall spot. Oh man, cell matches are now more fun than ever. There's now a door that can easily be broken open in order to get up on top. There's brand new moves to perform off the roof of the cell. These are the types of things we should have expected with the leap onto the PS2 in the last game. But hey, better late than never. These improvements to existing match types make Shut Your Mouth so much more fun to play on a match-by-match basis. Also, the announcers' tables have been upgraded as well. They're finally the full-size broadcast desk, rather than being the size of a regular table with a new skin thrown on it. The extra room makes it way easier to perform whatever moves you want through the table, and the animation has been improved big time. Look at the animation of the table crash and Just Bring It, compared to Shut Your Mouth. Not even a contest which one looks better. Get the fuck out of here. There are definitely some weird things happening in this game, and I would not feel right making this documentary series and not touching on them. Why is it that the diva's titties shake when you skip to the next line of dialogue? I always found this to be very strange. I'm not mad at it, it's just something I noticed. Who was in charge of that? Who was it that said, hey, make the titties shake when you press the button? Why is there so much space outside the ring? Look at this, it's ridiculous. Compare it to real life. You could fit the entire roster out here. You could fit the entire Roman Reigns fan club out here twice. There's so much space outside the ring, and yet the cell cage is slightly smaller than it should be, regarding how close to the ring it is. I always found this to be weird. My favorite weird quirk is how the wrestlers sell big bumps. And by favorite, I mean my least favorite. What the fuck is that? What is that? Who the fuck animated this? Who on the team could claim they had ever seen anything close to that in the wrestling world? I hated this animation, and I still do. It's a big bump. Big bumps should make us go, oh! Every big bump or high spot in this game leads to this animation, which leads to giggles and eye rolling. What a stupid thing. I think it looks like shit.
It does look like shit.
We still don't have the ability to put titles on the line in exhibition mode, which is a major bummer for me, but that might be the first outwardly and exclusively negative thing I've said about this game. And it's not because I saved them all for this part of the video. I don't really have a lot of negative things to say about Shut Your Mouth. It's easily the best game in the series so far. I know you Dan-Nans haven't forgotten how terrible the commentary was in WWF SmackDown Just Bring It. It was awful. It's the worst any of us have ever heard. Luckily, Shut Your Mouth has commentary, and it's way better. Taz and Michael Cole are gone. That's the good news. The better news is that JR and the King are in the game. They don't talk nearly as much, and when they do talk, it sounds awesome.
Well, this crowd certainly does not have too many Jerichoholics.
That's going to do it, Dan-Nans. That's the History of SmackDown Part 4, Return to Glory. I called it Return to Glory because I feel like that's what it is for the series. Just Bring It was the first time that we trekked downward, that it didn't feel like we had this continuing progression of going up. Shut Your Mouth is that Return to Glory, and it's the game that PlayStation fans can grab and raise above their head like a championship belt and put us back on track. It's the best game in the series so far. It was a breath of fresh air, and it's exactly what the series needed. You don't want to see it tank right there. Now, I know WWE 2K18 is right around the corner, and I know all you guys are very excited to play it, and I also know it's no coincidence that this video is dropping mere days before that game comes out. So I hope everybody has fun with the new game, but at the same time, if you are walking around whatever local mom and grout game shop you guys have and you see a copy of WWE SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, pick it up. Dude, it's still so good. It's so much fun. Have fun with WWE 2K18 and come back next month one last time in the series. Part 5. You know what I'm saying? Where we're going to cover possibly the best wrestling game ever made, WWE SmackDown. Here Comes the Pain. I'll see you next time. This is it, Dan-Dans, Part 5 in the History of SmackDown series, and what an excellent way to go out. With WWE SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain, a game that many people consider to be one of, if not the greatest wrestling game of all time. We're going to jump right in with what's brand new. There are 2 brand new match types in Here Comes the Pain, and they couldn't possibly be any more different. First up, the most diabolical structure in the history of sports entertainment. 2 miles of chain, 10 tons of steel, specifically designed to punish the human body.
The Elimination Chamber.
I cannot even begin to tell you how many times I played this mode when the game was first released. Everything you want to do in the chamber is doable, and the developers did not skimp. Want to climb on the inner walls? Go for it. Jump off the top of one of the pods? Make it happen. Smash your opponent through the pod's plexiglass walls? Oh, hell yeah. Wrestlers take extra damage when they're whipped into the chains, and falls count anywhere, so leaving the ring is a major gamble. One complaint I had with this mode was that slamming your opponent on the steel floor outside of the ring doesn't sound painful. It barely sounds like anything. In real life, that was a huge spot, and it looked awfully damaging. So a small sound effect here to put over how badly it hurts would have been nice. But other than that, the chamber is awesome. The other brand new match type comes in the form of the WCW Nitro video game on a pole match, where the only way to win, I'm kidding, it's bra and panties. Take your pick of Tori, Stacy, Lita, Trish, and any of the other divas and fight until somebody is half naked. I don't even want to know anyone's personal stories about playing this mode when you were a kid. Keep it to yourself. Shirts and pants are removed in a minigame that is identical to the new submission system. It's a fun idea, and I'm sure this mode was one of the main reasons many people bought this game. What a world we live in. As I just mentioned, Here Comes the Pain changes the way submission moves are handled for the first time in the whole series. Locking in the walls of Jericho is no longer a, I wonder if he'll tap this time, sort of gamble. Now we've got a button-mashing minigame prepared to give you blisters. This was a desperately needed update to the series, and it's a shame it took 5 games for the devs to realize that the submission system was sorely lacking. It's a welcome change. In part 4 of the series, we touched on the gameplay being slightly overhauled. And Here Comes the Pain, you take that overhaul dial and you crank it from slightly to completely. Gone are the days of your grapple moves being mapped from circle and a directional button. In its place is a system that feels very familiar to the Nintendo 64's all-time classic, WWF No Mercy. Circle and a directional button now locks you into a grapple, and each grapple contains 4 different moves. Up in circle launches you into a power grapple. Right in circle is your quick grapple. Down in circle is your submission grapple, and left in circle is your signature grapple. Let me break it down more simply. Each character now has 4 times as many moves as they used to. The variety goes deep and allows for your matches to look as dynamic as you can imagine. If you're looking to get the win as soon as possible, you use your power grapple to initiate power bombs and pile drivers and anything you think might get the job done. But if you're rolling an Angle versus Benoit match, you'll mix it up. Use your submission grapple to throw in a headlock and a signature grapple to execute a suplex, whatever. It's up to you to make the match look however you want it to look, and the freedom is very welcome. Here Comes the Pain also introduces Legends to the series, a feature prominently used in nearly every WWE game going forward. Legends are here in the shape of playable retired wrestlers like Rowdy Roddy Piper, Hillbilly Jim, Old School Undertaker, Sergeant Slaughter, Hawk and Animal, Jimmy Snuka, George the Animal Steel, and more. At the time, I thought this was weird, to include wrestlers who, in some cases, hadn't competed in decades. I was 13 years old wondering who the hell would want to book John Cena versus Roddy Piper. Looking back on it, I was an idiot. Including Legends obviously reaches to an audience that was much older than me at the time, and allows for players to act out fantasy matches that would never be possible in real life. It was obviously a huge hit, as years later WWE would release games where the entire idea was retro versus modern, and hell, one game was entirely retro. Weight classes are another feature debuting here that would prove to be very important to the series going forward. Put on an old SmackDown game. Pick Crash Holly. If you want to suplex The Undertaker, you can. It's no big deal. It's unrealistic, it looks stupid, and nobody likes it. Here Comes the Pain remedies the absurdity with its brand new weight class system. Pick Rey Mysterio and try to scoop slam the Big Show. It's not gonna happen. He'll try and try, but Rey will never get him up. Show is too damn heavy. This might be annoying at first, as you'll feel like you're at a major disadvantage if you're the smaller guy, but it forces you to be smart and create a game plan for every match you play. If you're playing Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar, you can smash and bash all you want. But when you're Ultimo Dragon going up against Kane, there's a whole new challenge in front of you. How do I attack him if I can't pick him up? How can I get him down long enough to land a flying attack? On top of adding another layer of strategy, let's be honest, it just looks better. It's an added bit of realism that my friends and I always appreciated each and every time we played. As per usual with a game in the SmackDown series, we've got a robust season mode ready to be explored. We're allowed to not only set the roster for each show, but we can even decide who's a heel and who's a babyface. Placing the superstars of your choice on either side can determine who you'll be feuding with as the mode progresses, so choosing wisely here is recommended. The free-roaming backstage areas of Shut Your Mouth are gone, and in its place, we've got a hub menu called the Locker Room. From this menu, we can check to see if any superstars are hanging around backstage areas, much like Shut Your Mouth. The difference is that we don't have to wander around to find them anymore. We can talk to our GM to ask for title shots or be transferred to the other show. We can check the list of champions and contenders, visit Shop Zone where we can buy unlockable content, and more. The purchase of unlockable content is done by spending your in-game cash, as winning matches in season mode earns you a set dollar amount every time. There are bonuses for main events and being a champion, so being successful in season mode has its perks. There's a menu after each match that shows you your progression in every area, which spans from your wallet, to your experience points, to your superstar points, which are required to get shots at certain titles. Season mode this time around has a very introspective angle to it, as our superstar of choice opens the game in black and white, in an empty arena, pondering to himself why he does what he does. Is it for the fans? The fame? The money? Or is it the love of the game? It's a really cool new look at things, and I played through this entire mode several times when I was younger. It's fantastic. One of the biggest disappointments with the game, for me at least, was that when I finally got the game in my hands, I kind of felt like I had been lied to. And that's because my favorite wrestler to watch at that age was Jeff Hardy. And in the Here Comes the Pain reveal trailer, we see him swantoning off the top of a ladder, only to be caught and F5'd by Brock Lesnar. This sequence looked astounding, as did Jeff's character model. His new look with the short hair and glowing body paint was absolutely spot on. Jeff Hardy was released from the company before the game came out, but he was in the trailer, so I thought we were cool. He made the cut. I remember talking to my buddy Bathroom Money Tim Ewers at Recess on launch day, and he said, "Dude, the new F5 looks awesome. He picks you up for a scoop slam and then throws you on his shoulders." I asked, "Does Jeff Hardy's paint glow?" He said,
"Jeff Hardy isn't in the game."
I was heartbroken. I knew there was a very real possibility he'd be taken out due to his departure from WWE, but I thought his appearance in the trailer meant he was safe, and I was wrong. It turns out that Jeff Hardy was not the only victim of the Here Comes the Pain content cutting. Originally, several different versions of Hulk Hogan were to be featured in the game, including his Mr. America persona from 2003. The old school Hogan even had an overall rating of 95, making him the best wrestler in the game. According to many sources, I'm personally quoting the cutting room floor, at least 12 superstars in total were cut from the game. These names include the aforementioned Jeff Hardy and Hulk Hogan, as well as Billy Kidman, Al Snow, Billy Gunn, Bradshaw, Jamal and Rosie, Molly Holly, Spike Dudley, William Regal, and even the Ultimate Warrior. Hogan and Warrior were cut very late into development, which is why they're the only superstars with complete bios and overall ratings. There's even some extremely rare footage of Warrior in Here Comes the Pain, captured so early that the game was still running on the Shut Your Mouth engine. It's a time capsule I'd like to recommend several of you download and save somewhere, so that this footage is never lost to the ages the way these characters were. Throughout this series, you guys have left comments on Facebook and YouTube and Reddit telling me I should cover the Create a Wrestler portions of the game. And I always intended to. I was just saving it specifically for this finale. In the original SmackDown game, Create a Wrestler was limited mostly to choosing existing heads, torsos, and lower bodies and combining the three into a look of your choice. In SmackDown 2, the options widened, allowing us to pick and choose whichever articles of clothing we wanted. Small advancements were the name of the game in Just Bring It and Shut Your Mouth, and now here we are with Here Comes the Pain. Compared to today's games like WWE 2K18, where facial scans have created wrestlers looking like actual in-game renders, this looks terrible. It really does. But that's what time does. That's how technology evolves. If you had Here Comes the Pain at launch like I did, you remember damn well how we got outsiders like Sting into the game. We had to print out CAW formulas and painstakingly move each individual slider to the desired number to make it just right. The current games have community creations where one person can make the best version of a wrestler. The best appearance, the best entrance, the best moveset, the best everything that goes along with it, the full package. They make it, they put it online, and we can all have it at the click of one button. Not the case back in 2003. We worked one by one, creating each character we wanted, taking hours at a time, assigning each and every punch, kick, and finisher of their moveset. It was a product of the times, it was a pain in the ass, and I think we're all happy that time has left this extremely complicated system behind. One of my least favorite aspects of any SmackDown game was the insanely stupid looking high spot bump animation from Shut Your Mouth. I'm happy to report that it is mostly missing from Here Comes the Pain, save for a few spots involving a helicopter.
What?
Yeah, you can jump off a fucking helicopter in the middle of Times Square. What the fuck was I just talking about? Oh yeah, the little bits and bobs I've noticed about the game throughout the years. Strangely enough, after Shut Your Mouth fixed the terrible commentary from Just Bring It, Here Comes the Pain decides to get rid of the commentary entirely. There aren't even voiceovers of ring announcers when the superstars make their entrances. It's just crowd noise and theme music. In place of the commentary is a hard-rocking industrial soundtrack that unfortunately gets old pretty fast. They all kind of blend together, but I'm pretty sure there are only 3 or 4 songs in the whole game. It's an odd choice I still don't quite understand to this day. On the plus side, the roster features several first-timers like Ultimo Dragon, Goldberg, Scott Steiner, John Cena, Batista, and Rey Mysterio, just to name a few, making it easily the best game roster to date. Call me sadistic, call me brutal, call me whatever you like, but one thing I was always disappointed with in the SmackDown games was the distinct lack of blood. You could never bust anybody open in the games. We want blood, we want the proverbial crimson mask, as JR would call it. Every big match had blood in it. Austin, The Rock, Triple H, Undertaker, they'd all bleed when the time was right because it gave the match that extra bit of drama. It made it feel like it wasn't just a wrestling match, but a fight. A fight where the superstars in the ring were putting absolutely everything on the line in order to walk out with the victory. And now, finally, in the 5th game of the series, we've got blood. After you've damaged your opponent's head enough to turn it red on the health indicator, which is another new feature, one more well-placed shot to the dome will split their forehead open like a cantaloupe. And we're not talking about just a little trickle, no way. The blood covers their face immediately, and each subsequent shot to the head will spurt out blood like a fucking Mortal Kombat fatality. It never gets old, and I'm saying that almost 15 years after launch. I love this. Some call SmackDown Here Comes the Pain the greatest wrestling game of all time, and with a deep season mode, exciting match types, extensive roster, compelling gameplay, and excellent creative features, that's hard to argue. It's crazy to think how far these games came as a series in just 4 years, but the proof is in this documentary series. I feel very fortunate to have been born in 1990, as I was able to grow up in what I considered the best time to be a gamer. I went from pro wrestling on the NES, to WWF Royal Rumble on the Genesis, to the SmackDown series on the PlayStation consoles. My brother used to sit next to me just feet from the screen under the glow of the old glass TV, and we'd hit each other in real life when one of us would land a big move on the other. Fast forward to 2003, and I'm on the playground at recess talking about the matches I'd had, the cutscenes my friends had seen in season mode, who our imaginary champions were. And from then on, things were different. My friends stopped watching wrestling. I didn't have many people to talk to about one of my favorite hobbies anymore, unless I was on the internet, and that just wasn't the same. The days of jumping up and down with my friends and playing wrestling games were over. And that's one of the main reasons this series ends here. From this point on, the SmackDown games changed their title to SmackDown vs. Raw, before eventually becoming the WWE 2K series. My love for these games disintegrated with SmackDown vs. Raw 2008, which I personally thought was terrible, much like the real-life product at the time. After having been a huge fan for more than half of my life, I had completely fallen out of love with wrestling. The first 5 SmackDown games give me a feeling that few things in life can. When I watch Willy Wonka and Gene Wilder sings Pure Imagination, I'm in my living room, it's 1995, and my dad is showing me one of his favorite movies of all time. When I hear Smooth by Carlos Santana, I'm 11 years old, I'm in the store, and I'm buying myself the first CD that I ever bought. And when I play Here Comes the Pain, I'm 13, I'm on the junior high playground, and I'm telling and listening to as many stories as I can before my friends and I get rushed back to class. I don't love the SmackDown games just because they're great games. I love the SmackDown games because they bring me back great memories. This whole series here was not just the history of SmackDown. This was my history with SmackDown. And I really appreciate you watching. I love you, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you guys again with whatever documentary series I do next. This has been fun, and I'll see you next time.